you the story of Cinderella. We crickets get around a lot, and I happen to be living in the same chateau with Cinderella when this story began. But to begin at the beginning, Cinderella lived with her wicked stepmother and her two selfish stepsisters, Anastasia and Drusilla. Her stepmother had a mean old cat named Lucifer, but he was the only animal in the place who didn't think Cinderella was wonderful. Why, she was always gentle and kind, even to mice like Jack and Gus, and birds, and even to bugs like me. Cinderella's stepmother made her work very hard and sleep way up in an attic room, and Anastasia and Drusilla were always ordering her around. Nonetheless, Cinderella was always cheerful, and she always had her dreams, because she used to say, "A dream is a wish your heart makes."
Is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. In dreams you will lose your heartache. Whatever you wish for, you have faith in your dreams, and someday your rainbow will come sliding through. No matter how your heart is breathing, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come true. No matter how your heart is breathing, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come
Now it happened that the king of the country in which Cinderella lived had an only son, and the king thought it was time for the prince to be married. So he decided to have a big party and to invite all of the eligible young ladies in the entire land, hoping that one of them would catch the eye of the prince and that, well, romance might follow. So, one fine day, a messenger from the king came to the chateau and delivered an invitation to all young girls in the land to come to a party that very night. Well, you can imagine the excitement, and Cinderella's stepsisters began getting ready for the party immediately. Cinderella was excited too, but her stepsisters gave her so much extra work to do that it began to look as if she wouldn't be able to go to the party at all. She had no party dress to wear, nor had she time to fix one. But you see, it pays to be kind to animals, and birds, and even bugs. For when Cinderella's friends, the mice, saw what was happening, they went to work immediately to make a dress for Cinderella.
Every time she'd find a minute, that's the time of day beginning. Cinderella, Cinderella. Cinderella, Cinderella, night and day, it's Cinderella. Make the fire, fix the breakfast, wash the dishes, do the laundry, and the dishes after something. They always keep her hopping. She's going round in circles till she's very, very dizzy. Still they holler, keep her busy, Cinderella.
Jack and Gus went scurrying down to find some trimming for Cinderella's dress. And sure enough, they found an old string of beads which Driz had thrown away. But sitting right on top of them was that fat cat, Lucifer. So Jack pulled Lucifer's tail, and when Lucifer started chasing him, Gus grabbed the beads and headed for the mouse hole. But he tripped over the beads, and they broke and rolled all over the floor. Well, you have never seen two mice work any faster to pick up beads, but they got them all and popped into the mouse hole, just in time to avoid Lucifer's last pounce. So Jack and Gus hurried back to help the other mice complete Cinderella's dress. So that night, as the cruel stepmother and her daughters were leaving for the royal ball, there was Cinderella, all dressed in her beautiful pink gown that the mice had made for her. Now comes one of the sad parts of the story. When Cinderella's stepmother and Stace and Driz saw that Cinderella was going to the ball after all, they were envious of her beauty. Suddenly they saw that the mice had trimmed her dress with Drusilla's old beads and Anastasia's old sash. So they grabbed at them and ripped them off and tore the dress, and Cinderella began to cry. The stepsisters and the stepmother set off for the ball. But poor Cinderella rushed out into the garden and cried and cried. I felt like crying too, so I followed her out into the garden, hoping that I could cheer her up somehow. And suddenly the most amazing thing happened right before my very eyes. Where nothing had been before, there suddenly appeared a little old lady. It was Cinderella's fairy godmother. And she said, "Cinderella, I have a magic wand and magic words, and I promise you will go to the ball tonight."
Put them together and what have you got? Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Salad-a-doo, a magic-a-boo, a bibbidi bobbidi boo. If you do magic, believe it or not, bibbidi bobbidi boo. Now salad-a-doo, a magic-a-boo, a roo. And the thing in the ball that does the job is bibbidi bobbidi boo. Bibbidi boo, a bibbidi bobbidi boo. Bibbidi bobbidi bobbidi boo.
You know, every time Cinderella's fairy godmother said those magic words, something astounding happened. First, she pointed the magic wand at an old pumpkin and said, "Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo," and it turned into a beautiful white coach. Then she pointed her wand at 4 of Cinderella's little mice friends and said, "Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo," and they turned into beautiful horses. Can you imagine such wonderful magic? But it's true. I saw it. Then it was Major, the old horse's turn, and with a bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, he became a coachman, and Bruno the dog became a footman holding open the door of the coach for Cinderella with a bibbidi-bobbidi-boo. The fairy godmother almost forgot that Cinderella's dress was torn into rags, but just at the last minute she remembered, and with a very special effort, Cinderella's torn dress was turned into a lovely white gown, and on her feet were 2 glass slippers. I decided that I couldn't miss this affair either, so I hopped into Cinderella's coach and hid beneath a cushion. And just as we were leaving, I heard Cinderella's godmother say, "But remember, Cinderella, you must be home by midnight, for then the magic spell will be broken and everything will return to the way it was." Then we raced off toward the castle. Arrived at the palace and went in. Now, I've been in some pretty fancy places and had some pretty swell parties in my day, but I've never seen anything like the royal ball. There were all kinds of beautiful girls, but of them all, Cinderella was the fairest by far. Oh, it was a beautiful sight. Bright lights, beautiful dresses, swirling skirts, and everybody dancing. It wasn't very long until the prince saw Cinderella and asked her to dance. And he soon realized that she was the one girl he'd been waiting for. They danced and danced all evening long, and Cinderella's heart was just full of happiness.
So this is love. So this is love. So this is what makes life. I'm all aglow, and now I know, is mine. My heart has wings, and I can fly. I'll touch every star.
Well, you know how time flies when you're having a good time. And before Cinderella realized it, she suddenly heard the clock beginning to strike 12. My goodness, it's midnight already. We've got to get out of here. Cinderella, Cinderella, it's midnight. Well, the minute Cinderella heard the clock strike, she left the prince and ran through the hall and down the stairs, losing one glass slipper on the way. I followed her as best I could. She jumped into her coach, and by taking a tremendous... The king's soldiers are chasing us. They're riding like the wind. Hey, the soldiers are coming closer. 9. Well, just as the fairy godmother had said, everything was changed back, and here we were by the side of a road. 4 mice, a horse. Everything was the same, except on Cinderella's foot was the other glass slipper. This her fairy godmother had let her keep, so she would always remember this wonderful night. Now, she kept humming all the way home, and I'm convinced that she was with the prince. And so she knew that the glass slipper would fit Cinderella's foot. To get rid of stepsisters, and, of course, it didn't fit. And so he prepared to leave. But in the meantime, Cinderella's friends, the mice, got the key and slowly carried it up the stairs. Up, up, up to the very top. But old Lucifer was waiting for them, and it looked like the end of Jack and Gus for a minute. But Cinderella called out the window to Bruno, the faithful dog, and he bounded up the stairs and chased Lucifer away. Then the mice pushed the key under the door so that Cinderella could let herself out. Cinderella came running down the stairs. The Duke was just leaving, and Cindy said, Your Grace, may I try it on? And the Duke said, Why, of course. Every eligible young lady must try it on. But just as he started to walk over to Cinderella, that mean old stepmother tripped him and he fell down and broke the slipper. He was very upset. But when Cinderella showed him that she had the other glass slipper, he knew he had found the right girl at last. So off they went to the palace, and the wedding bells were soon ringing. Jack and Gus and all the other mice turned up at the wedding in their full dress uniforms. Everybody was happy as could be, and you know the rest of the story. They lived happily ever after.